It's time to integrate our stink attack into our main game scene. So I'm going to go down to the scenes folder and I'm going to double click on main. Here in main, I'm going to double click on the boy game object to center it on the screen. And then I'm going to expand the boy game object and the antenna game object so that I can add the stink attack emitter. I'll go to the VFX folder underneath the prefabs folder and I'm going to look for stink attack. I'll click and drag the stink attack onto the antenna game object. I'm going to ensure that the stink attack game object is centered on the antenna, which we can see that it is by looking at the transform component in the inspector. Now the stink attack is looking for the stink reticule and a stink projectile. The stink projectile isn't in the scene yet, but the stink targeting reticule is as a child object of stink attack. To add the stink projectile to the scene, I'm going to go ahead and expand the attack effects game object in the hierarchy window. Then, I'm going to locate the stink projectile in my VFX prefabs folder and click and drag it on top of the attack effects game object, making it a child. We don't want it to start enabled, so I'm going to go ahead and disable that game object. We're also going to need a stink hit game object, so I'm going to click and drag the stink hit prefab from the VFX prefabs folder and also drop it on top of the attack effects game object. This one's already disabled, which is good. Now I'm going to go back and click on the stink projectile, and underneath the stink projectile script it wants to know where our stink hit game object is, and so I'm just going to click and drag the stink hit game object over to the stink hit property on the stink projectile script. Moving backwards, I'm going to go back to the stink attack script, and underneath weapon references where it wants to know where the stink projectile is, I'm going to click and drag the stink projectile game object onto the stink projectile property. Finally, I'm going to go back to the boy game object and look at the player attack script. I'm going to click and drag the stink attack game object onto the stink attack property and change my number of attacks to 3. Now I'm going to save my scene and press play. I'm going to switch over to my stink attack and wait for some enemies. As you can see, the first enemy hit starts running away. I'm going to try to pool a large group. And one stink attack shell, and they all go running for cover. The color change on the reticule lets me know when it's ready to start attacking again. While the stink attack is really quite gross if you think about it, it's also very effective when you're trying to create an opening to escape in the Zombie Toys project. In the next section, we're going to start working on our final attack, the slime attack.